over time, there have been numbers of targets for your advocacy, all of them deserving to be targets, all of them reputable targets. You concentrated on a number of bilaterals, whether it's the United States or the United Kingdom. You've concentrated on the G8 countries in particular. You've concentrated on the World Trade Organization. You've dealt with free trade agreements as such. You've dealt with drug companies and with recipient and developing country governments. You've dealt with the Global Fund against AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. You have carved out a number of domains to which the advocacy is directed, and you have made a considerable impact. But along with all of those vehicles through whom you work and about which you are engaged, there is another realm I want to speak about, because it's going to give you a sense, I hope, of even broader advocacy. And that's the realm from which I have recently emerged and have had much of my life immersed in for the last 20 years and more. That's the realm of multilateralism. That's the realm of the United Nations system. That's the realm of a whole broad engagement of institutions, powerful institutions, which are rarely held to account, about whom and about which very little is said, a kind of impunity to behave and do as they wish, even when, not unlike governments, not unlike the Global Fund, not unlike the WTO, not unlike the G8, they sometimes perform lamentably. And it's terribly important, therefore, to recognize the range of the advocacy which collectively you should embrace. There are no sacred cows in advocacy. You don't allow anybody off the hook. You don't turn your back just because somebody is more powerful or may have the capacity to finance your organization. You take on everyone who is not behaving adequately in the context of the issues or who needs further encouragement about those issues. And so let me now give you a pretty wide range of examples of issues which require advocacy, desperately require advocacy, and where all of you could, from this point on, be engaged in your respective fields of activity. Number one, let me speak for a moment to the trade stream, because it's something that's happened in the last 2 or 3 days, which I must admit took me completely aback. The new Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Margaret Chan, literally on her 30th day in office, effectively sided with the pharmaceutical industry against the government of Thailand in the decision by the government of Thailand to issue a compulsory license for the creation of Kaletra at a much lower cost. Now, you will know that Abbott, as a pharmaceutical company, has been incredibly difficult to deal with in getting the prices of Kaletra down, which are required as a second-line intervention after the first-line intervention is taken. And there are 20,000 people or more in Thailand who need Kaletra, but cannot possibly afford it at the present pharmaceutical price. And so the government, entirely within the bounds of the World Trade Organization intellectual property clauses. I mean, this was decided back in August of 2003. There is no question that the government of Thailand observed scrupulously the requirements of the World Trade Organization, so there is no suggestion of violation of international law. The government of Thailand said it intended to issue a compulsory license in order to get the price of Kaletra down, and by the way, some other drugs. You would think, since it's a matter of human health, that the Director General of the World Health Organization would applaud the government of Thailand, would say, this is what we should be doing, always issuing a compulsory license. In my country, in Canada, I admit to you, a mere appendage of the United States, and therefore of little consequence. In my country, in Canada, we've had legislation on the books for nearly 4 years allowing generic drug companies companies to manufacture generic antiretroviral drugs for export to developing countries. And because of the extraordinarily manipulative and destructive activity of the brand name pharmaceutical companies, not a single pill has left Canada for recipient countries over 4 years, and there's now a very serious parliamentary study of what the devil went wrong. Don't ever underestimate the power of the pharmaceutical industry and its determination to wreak havoc when it can, particularly when it is protecting its balance sheet. And so you get, on February 2nd, not very long ago, a headline in the Bangkok Post which reads, WHO wraps compulsory licensing plan. Dr. Margaret Chan said, I'd like to underline that we have to find a right balance for compulsory licensing. We can't be naive about this. And she goes on to suggest further negotiation with the drug companies. Most extraordinary. And what is concerning about it is the implication for exactly what was raised at this microphone a few moments ago. There is the court case in India. The court case in India, which involves Novartis and the patent laws. What side will WHO come down on in that case? Why should the lawyers for Novartis be able to quote the Director General of the World Health Organization before an Indian court of law, indicating that the Director General of the WHO suggests that we shouldn't be issuing compulsory license, and therefore, by extended implication, suggests that the pharmaceutical companies are doing the best they can? Why should we therefore resist the legal claims of Novartis? You see, what should happen is that we begin a pretty serious letter-writing campaign and a series of public protests going directly to the World Health Organization saying, what the question? What happened? Let me tell you just a slight personal anecdote about this. I was in Geneva last week. I actually spoke to the World Health Organization staff. I met with Dr. Margaret Chan. Before I met Dr. Chan, because I had not met her before, I chatted briefly with her senior staff member, who said to me, Stephen, we're in the middle of our executive board meeting, and curiously enough, every single issue that's coming before the executive board seems to be suffused by discussions of intellectual property rights. I said, why? What's up? Why suddenly trade matters before your executive board? And he said, I'm not really quite sure, but that seems to be the dominant theme, always intellectual property rights. So you see, whether it was the United States under the influence of the pharmaceutical industry or whether it was other countries under the influence of the pharmaceutical industry, they made their point. Because the Director General of the World Health Organization a few days later takes on the government of Thailand over compulsory licensing. There's something wrong somewhere. These are extraordinarily visceral battles. At the end of these battles lie human lives. It's terribly important, therefore, that you never draw back from making the case respectfully, vigorously, but in an uncompromising and principled fashion.